They're not powerful enough to engage Bismarck, clearly, but what they can do is absolutely classic cruiser work, which is to find the enemy, report the enemy's presence, and then shadow.
The battleship Bismarck was a ghost that haunted the Atlantic. A 50,000-ton predator that took the pride of the British Navy to the bottom in minutes. Its own demise has been the subject of debate for decades, but now the debate is over. A remotely operated drone, exploring the wreck at a depth of 15,000 feet, captured something that shouldn't be possible. You see, the wreck itself tells one story, but what the drone's instruments detected tells another. A story that's far darker and will leave you questioning everything. The heartbeat of the wreck.
As I was looking at the Bismarck, I saw all these little winking lights and I thought, oh, isn't that pretty? And all of a sudden I realized that what I thought was pretty was death and destruction in the form of about 8 tons of metal coming my way.
The journey begins in a world without light. 15,700 feet below the churning surface of the North Atlantic, the pressure is a monstrous 6,800 pounds per square inch. Down here, the weight of the ocean can implode military submarines like they're made of paper. It's a realm more hostile and less explored than the surface of the moon. This is the destination for Odin, a state-of-the-art autonomous underwater drone. Odin isn't just a camera on a string, it's a multi-million-dollar marvel of engineering, equipped with sonar that can map the seabed in breathtaking detail, hydrophones that can hear the snap of a shrimp a mile away, and lights that can carve a hole in the eternal midnight of the abyss. Its target is a legend.
This is the center of the whole section of the ship that's missing, that's been obliterated.
A tomb of steel resting on the slope of an extinct underwater volcano. The German battleship Bismarck. For days, the support vessel above has tracked Odin's slow, methodical descent. The mission's public goal is simple: to create the most detailed 3D model of the wreck ever attempted and finally put to bed the 80-year-old debate about how she met her end. But not all things are what they seem. As Odin reached its target depth, the mission took a turn no one could have predicted. The sonar began painting a hauntingly clear picture of the massive 823-foot-long hull, sitting eerily upright, a ghost ship preserved in the freezing cold. The drone's cameras showed the superstructure shredded by shellfire, the empty gun mounts pointing accusingly towards the dark water above.
Suddenly, this tiny little voice saying, "Enemy in sight!" People looking up to see. There he was, right up. "Enemy in sight," and pointing towards a blank horizon.
It looked exactly as expected, a silent, dead war grave. Then the anomaly appeared. The hydrophone operator, listening to the filtered audio feed, heard something. It wasn't the creak and groan of a settling wreck, nor the sound of deep-sea currents. It was a noise that had no business being there. A low, rhythmic metallic pulse, asterisk, thump, 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 thump. It was slow, almost like a massive, labored heartbeat. The sound was faint, but it was undeniably there, and worse, it seemed to be emanating from deep within the Bismarck's armored citadel. On the screen, technicians saw the sound waves register as a clear, repeating pattern. It was impossible. The ship had been dead for over 80 years. Its engines were silent, its power gone. There was nothing on board that could be making a rhythmic sound. Panic wasn't an option, but a tense confusion gripped the control room. Was it a sensor malfunction? They ran diagnostics. Everything was green. Could it be a strange geological phenomenon from the undersea volcano the ship rested on? Unlikely, as the sound was distinctly metallic and localized directly to the wreck. The team decided to guide Odin closer, toward a gash in the hull on the port side, an old wound from the final battle. As the drone maneuvered its brilliant lights into the breach, its high-definition cameras peered into the ship's dark innards, and that's when the second impossibility occurred. For a split second, something dark and indistinct blotted out the light. It was a fleeting, shadowy shape that moved with a speed and fluidity that didn't match any known deep-sea creature at this depth. It was gone before the camera could even focus. Marine snow? A trick of the light? The most shocking fact is, the operators replayed the footage over and over. It wasn't a fish, and it wasn't debris. It was just a shadow where no shadow should be. The drone had captured a ghost. The team had been sent to find answers about a historical event. Instead, they found a chilling mystery. What was making that impossible sound? And what was that shadow lurking inside the dead warship? The official story of the Bismarck was about to be blown wide open. What they found next would only deepen the terrifying mystery. The 8-day terror.
Bismarck is a very impressive warship. She is extremely dangerous.
To understand the chill of that discovery, the Bismarck wasn't just a ship, it was a statement. When it was launched in 1939, it was the largest and most powerful warship in the world, a 50,000-ton symbol of Germany's military ambition. Its main guns could hurl 2,000-pound shells, the weight of a small car. Its armor belt, over a foot of solid steel, was considered impenetrable. To put it mildly, it was designed to be unsinkable, a predator built to sever Great Britain's lifeline across the Atlantic. And for 8 terrifying days in May of 1941, it lived up to its reputation. The thing nobody tells you is just how much fear this single ship generated. Its first and only mission, Operation Rheinübung, was to sneak into the Atlantic and wreak havoc on the convoys that kept Britain alive. The British Royal Navy, the most powerful navy in the world, threw everything it had at finding it. The first to make contact were the pride of their fleet, the battlecruiser HMS Hood and the brand new battleship HMS Prince of Wales. The Hood was a legend in its own right, a beloved symbol of British sea power. The battle that followed, in the Denmark Strait, was brutally short. Just 8 minutes after opening fire, a shell from the Bismarck plunged through the Hood's deck armor and detonated its main ammunition magazine. The resulting explosion was catastrophic, tearing the massive ship in two. Over 1,400 men vanished in a fireball and a plume of smoke. Only 3 survived. The Bismarck had eliminated the pride of the Royal Navy in minutes. What many overlooked in that moment of victory was that the Bismarck didn't escape unscathed. A shell from the Prince of Wales had hit a fuel tank, forcing the ship to leak precious oil and reducing its top speed. This was the wound that would ultimately prove fatal. With his ship bleeding a trail across the Atlantic, the German commander, Admiral Lütjens, made the decision to head for the safety of a port in occupied France. What followed was one of the most desperate and dramatic naval chases in all of history. Winston Churchill gave a simple, chilling order to the entire British fleet: sink the Bismarck. Every available British warship in the Atlantic, from battleships and aircraft carriers to cruisers and destroyers, was diverted to join the hunt. For 2 days, the Bismarck was a ghost, managing to evade its pursuers. Then, a single British patrol plane spotted it. The final blow came not from the massive guns of a battleship, but from a handful of obsolete biplanes. Affectionately called string bags, these swordfish torpedo bombers, with their fabric wings and open cockpits, took off from the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal in gale-force winds. To many, it seemed like a futile gesture, but in a 1-in-a-million shot, a torpedo dropped by one of these flimsy planes struck the Bismarck's stern, jamming its rudders. The unsinkable beast was now trapped, unable to steer, forced to turn in slow circles as the full might of the Royal Navy closed in for the final encounter. The stage was set for a brutal end, or so the story goes. But the drone's discovery suggests the ship's final fight wasn't with the British at all. A wreck of contradictions.
It was to be one of the last great battles of the era of naval gunnery.
For over 80 years, the world accepted the story of the Bismarck's final stand. We were told of a 2-hour-long, merciless bombardment by British battleships that hammered the German vessel into a burning wreck before torpedoes sent it to the bottom. It was a clear-cut naval victory. But when explorers like Robert Ballard and later, director James Cameron, first laid eyes on the wreck, they found something that didn't quite fit the official narrative. And now, the new footage from the Odin drone, combined with that impossible rhythmic sound, paints an even more disturbing picture. The wreck is a scene of contradictions. You see, while the superstructure, the command towers, decks, and anything above the main hull, is absolutely shredded, a twisted junkyard of metal ravaged by more than 400 shell hits, the main armored belt tells a very different story. This is the heart of the ship, a massive wall of steel over a foot thick, designed to protect the engines, the magazines, and the ship's vital organs. The British battleships fired over 700 heavy-caliber, armor-piercing shells at the Bismarck. Yet, upon close inspection of the wreck, investigators have found only a handful of cases where a shell actually managed to punch all the way through this main armor. For the most part, the citadel is shockingly intact. The ship was beaten from the top down, but its core seems to have remained largely unbreached by gunfire. This raises a terrifying question. If the shells didn't sink it, what did? The British also fired multiple torpedoes. But again, the drone's high-resolution sonar mapping shows no signs of the massive, gaping holes you would expect from a torpedo detonation against the hull. There are long gashes and tears in the lower hull plating, yes, but marine geologists and naval architects agree that these are consistent with the immense damage caused when the 50,000-ton ship first slammed into the seafloor and then slid over a mile down the side of the underwater mountain. It was the impact with the ground, not the torpedoes, that seems to have caused this damage. So, if the guns didn't sink it and the torpedoes didn't sink it, how did over 150,000 tons of water flood into an unsinkable ship? The answer lies in the testimony of the few German survivors. They claim that with the ship crippled and the battle lost, the order was given to scuttle. Demolition charges were set, and more importantly, the massive valves and watertight doors deep within the ship, the very systems designed to keep the ocean out, were opened by the crew to let the ocean in. They chose to sink their own ship rather than let it be captured. This act of defiance has always been a footnote in the story, but the drone's findings, the intact armor, the rhythmic sound from within, the fleeting shadow, force us to look at it in a new, chilling light. The thing nobody tells you is that this wasn't just about defiance. The scuttling might have been an act of sheer desperation, not to keep the ship from the enemy, but to entomb something that was already on board. Was the crew trying to sink the ship, or were they trying to make sure something else went down with it? What the crew really feared.
How could the pride of the fleet have been destroyed so quickly, and who was to blame?
Let's connect the dots. We have a warship that, by all accounts, should have been able to withstand far more punishment to its core. We have a crew that deliberately opened the floodgates to the Atlantic Ocean, and now we have a modern drone detecting an impossible rhythmic heartbeat and a ghostly shadow from within the wreck. The people watching this are looking for a mystery, and the evidence points to something far stranger than a simple naval engagement. Is it possible we've been missing a key detail all along? The thing is, what if the British weren't the only enemy the Bismarck faced in its final hours? Let's consider a chilling possibility. The story has always been framed as man versus man, ship versus ship. But what if it was man versus something else? The North Atlantic is home to countless unexplained phenomena. Legends of the sea speak of strange occurrences and ghost ships. What if the Bismarck, damaged and alone in the vast ocean, attracted something? An uninvited passenger. This isn't about sea monsters, but about unexplained phenomena. Could the rhythmic sound be some bizarre bioelectric field generated by a deep-sea organism that has made the wreck its home? Or, more unnervingly, is it possible that the sound is purely mechanical? A piece of long-dead machinery, stressed and contorted by the immense pressure, caught in a repeating loop, endlessly groaning in the dark. It's a machine ghost, a memory in the metal. And what of the shadow? A camera glitch? Or something more? The deep ocean is the most mysterious place on Earth. We know more about deep space. We are constantly discovering new species that defy our understanding of life. But this brings us back to the crew. Why scuttle the ship so deliberately? Why open the inner doors and valves? The official reason is to prevent capture, but survivors spoke of a sense of urgency, of a need to sink the ship as fast as possible. What if the order to scuttle wasn't about defiance, but about quarantine? What if, in the chaos of the battle, with fires raging and compartments breached, something got in, or something that was already there got out? Perhaps the crew's final, desperate act wasn't to deny the British a trophy, but to use the weight of the Atlantic Ocean to bury a horror they could no longer control. The Bismarck became a 50,000-ton coffin, deliberately sunk by its own crew to ensure whatever was on board with them would be trapped 3 miles down, forever. The terrifying thing the drone captured isn't a monster, but the evidence of a story we were never told. The sound is the ship's final, lingering secret, a pulse in the abyss that reminds us that some tombs should never be disturbed. The official history is clean and simple. The reality, hinted at by the drone's eerie discoveries, is messy, unexplained, and utterly terrifying. The evidence is clear. The Bismarck's hull was never truly breached by the enemy. Was the crew's final act one of honor, or were they trying to bury something else in the abyss? What do you think is making that sound? Let us know below. Like and subscribe for more secrets from the deep.